As stressful as they may be, sometimes the holidays, as stressful as they may sometimes be, the holidays are a time for celebration and merriment. There are many ways in which we can celebrate and find joy this time of year. We eat more festively, as evidenced by our smorgasbord here this evening. We enjoy spending time with our friends and loved ones, many of whom we don't get to see as often as we like, many of whom we're quite comfortable with seeing maybe only once or twice a year. Some of us as adults enjoy living vicariously through children. Watching them celebrate Christmas causes us to reflect back on more memories of our own childhood and of Christmases past. And some of us still very much enjoy the pleasure of giving and, of course, receiving gifts. The gifts most of the people in this room will get this year probably aren't children's toys. Now, at some point, the fire trucks and dolls that we once got are traded away for dishware sets and novelty ties. However, once in a while we may receive a gift that comes at us from childhood. For me, there's a gift just such as that coming this year. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, is opening in theaters this very evening. And it is the Christmas present that I and many others have been waiting quite literally for years for. As a movie buff and more importantly a Star Wars fan, there's a lot riding on this film for both myself and my fellow fans, as I would like to explain to you why. First off, it's finally a sequel to the original Star Wars trilogy. Secondly, it's important that we dilute the memory of the prequel trilogy. And finally, and most importantly, it allows people my age, a little bit older and a little bit younger, to revisit our childhood. First of all, this new Star Wars film is a sequel to Return of the Jedi, which was released in 1983. I was born in 1984. I've literally been waiting my entire life for this movie. I grew up with the original trilogy and could probably quote all the lines from the films by the time I was about 8 years old. With any good piece of entertainment, the story left you wanting more at the end of Return of the Jedi, despite its seeming conclusion to the original films. We always wondered what ends up of our heroes. Do Han Solo and Princess Leia get married? Does Luke Skywalker go on to train a new generation of Jedi Knights? Is the Empire truly defeated, or does it simply fragment into smaller factions, each one controlled by a different warlord? Those questions we've always had, and now we'll get the answers. Sequels, the opposite of prequels. Those prequels, those Star Wars prequels, there are some redeeming qualities about those films. Most Star Wars fans will agree that they were an overall disappointment. There are many reasons why this is agreed on. Simply put, the prequels were just not as fun as the original films. They lacked that sense of humor and didn't have any of the swashbuckling the original films had. They were filled with unnecessary characters, nonsensical plot points, long drawn-out, boring scenes about fictional trade disputes. Also, the special effects were far too computerized. We missed Yoda as a rubber puppet. Don't like that CGI, blurry, animated-looking Yoda that we had in the prequels. We're counting on these new films to cleanse our palate of the bad taste left in our mouths by the prequel films. J.J. Abrams, the man chosen to direct the new film, is someone who grew up loving the original films. He helmed the first two Star Trek films released in the last 6 years, which were criticized for being too Star Wars-y and not enough Star Trek-y. That's why Abrams is the right man for the job. Preliminary critical reviews of the new Star Wars film are overwhelmingly positive. I mentioned earlier, this time of year, the holiday season, is one in which many of us reflect on good memories of our childhood. And that's what I do, as well as also know that this is the most appropriate time of the year for a new Star Wars film to be released. As I said, I grew up watching the original trilogy repeatedly. I knew all the dialogue. I knew all the names of the characters, even the ones whose names weren't said on screen. When I was a kid, I wanted to grow up to be Han Solo so bad. But then again, I also wanted to be Luke Skywalker. the ultimate good guy who wielded a lightsaber, the coolest weapon ever put on film, and a guy who had to deal with the fact that his own father was one of the most evil men in the galaxy. I'm hoping this new film can offer me a couple of hours of escapism for being an adult and being back to my 8-year-old self, where I can enjoy a Star Wars film that I've never seen before with our original heroes. Now, whether or not you're a Star Wars fan isn't important. I discussed it here because it's an important piece of culture for my generation. It just so happens that, for me personally, much like Christmas, it just so happens that we're getting a Star Wars film for Christmas. And if you aren't a fan, I hope you could find a way to be a kid again this holiday season. It's the most important aspect of the holiday season. So, may the Force be with you, and have a Merry Christmas. Mr. Toastmaster.